Hi, if you or your children are suffering because of your relationship with your ex-partner, because it's stressed or strained, or maybe they're just not a nice person, this show is for you. Welcome to the High Conflict Co-Parenting Podcast with Brooke Olson and Charlie Jewett. Enjoy another episode now. Hey everybody, welcome back to the High Conflict Co-Parenting Podcast with Brooke Olson, and I'm your host Charlie Jewett. And this is episode 2. We're just getting rocking here, Brooke, but hopefully people's lives are starting to change already, and we'll reach out from there, huh?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting this next piece of material out. I think it's going to help a lot of people move into some different thought patterns. So let's roll.
So you asked me before I started recording. You said, "How are you doing?" I figured, why don't I just answer on the show, because some people probably can relate. How am I doing? I'm in the midst of a divorce that's gone years longer than I expected, which we talked a little bit about last week, right? You said, why would you have expected anything else? As the marriage goes, so goes the divorce, right?
Right.
And I'm in the middle of it, like probably a lot of listeners, and looking at the attorney's bills, it takes my breath away. Looking at what's coming up, it takes my breath away even more thinking about that. And then the emotional piece, the emotional side of it, just in many ways being in a high conflict, and it's not always divorce, right? We're talking about high conflict relationships or co-parenting. This could be just people that live together and are trying to figure out, how do we raise this child we had now that we're not together anymore in a romantic sense.
Right.
But a lot of us are in the legal piece too, the divorce process. And in a lot of ways, it's just 2 or 3 years of reading documents where someone says the worst things they could possibly say about you, which isn't really that edifying, right?
No, and I think part of the important piece of what you're talking about is how do you stay present in just what is here and have faith, have the sense that at some point this will end, and how do I just stay present for what's in front of me right now?
And there has to be an emotional Aikido portion of this, which is life is happening for me, not to me. As our listeners go through this, yes, stuff happens, other things are said, things come your way that you don't want. And if you chose, because we do have that choice, how to think, the meaning we associate to things, if we did choose to say, this is bad, it shouldn't be that way, let me fight it, that's going to create more stress and pain than somehow this is for me, somehow this is good, I don't see it, let me roll with it, right?
Right. Acceptance.
Reality is not going to change if you're mad at it, right? You're just going to hurt yourself. And then I don't even know if this is on topic, but as I was talking, I just was thinking that divorces, because we talked a little bit about last week about if you expect the court system to be one thing and find out what it really is, that could be very shocking, like it was for me, right? This, in a lot of ways, it's the art of exaggeration, and then paid exaggerators helping people to exaggerate even more, isn't it?
That's an interesting way of putting it. Yeah, exaggeration, or stated more succinctly, lying.
Lying, right? I mean, if you ever crossed your eyes at somebody in court, that turns into physical, emotional abuse somehow in the documents, right? Because you crossed your eyes and raised your voice and said, "I don't like you."
Right.
Well, it's in the midst of these messy breakups, and what we talked about, one side or both sides having legitimately measurable mental illnesses or emotional disturbances. It's in the midst of that a child or children still need to be raised. There's parenting that has to be done. There's a business relationship of sorts that some people call co-parenting.
Right.
That's parenting in general is hard. If you have a happy couple stay married for 50 years, their years of parenting, it's difficult because it's just difficult. Children are difficult and they push back, and depending on the examples you had, it may be the tools you're bringing to the table may be extensive or lacking. But parenting in the midst of a high conflict relationship with somebody that may not even have the ability to be happy, peaceful, or be in good relationships because of their emotional struggles, this is a whole different world, right?
It's totally different. And you're talking about people being in relationships for years and raising children. I work with couples that are in relationships that are struggling, And so much of their struggle is often around their parenting and ideas of different types of parenting. So as we start to address this subject for today, this parallel parenting model, I think what's crucial in this for the people listening to this podcast today is that their responsibility for their parenting style is their responsibility and their responsibility alone. And so many people don't take the time and the effort to understand what parenting means and to have a model for it. They're shooting for the hip. I mean, you've been in plenty of my classes where this has been the subject of how to really stop the conflict and take the responsibility of being a good parent and understanding what that exactly means.
Yeah. And that, I mean, the time that we do have with the children, whether somehow you've been limited to 4 hours a week supervised visitation, or whether you have 50-50, the time that we have with our children, that's all we control. I mean, the job of the separated parent, the co-parent, right? Our job, if there's another person involved that we're no longer living with our job is not to control what happens in the other person's household, is it?
No, it's not, because by definition of the separation, you really don't have the ability to control that. And to stay in a conversation with somebody who is diametrically opposed or chooses to be diametrically opposed to how you want to go about this or how they want you to go about this, just is not going to function. It's going to add to the disagreement, to the argument, and to the conflict.
I think at one point earlier on in my divorce, which, as you know, isn't even complete, we're coming up on 2 years, I think I read like 28 pages of complaints about me. It was submitted as it was lodged. Is that the right word? Lodged with the court, right?
Yes.
And I wrote my attorney and said, I think I could summarize the entire 28 pages as I would do things differently if I were him, or the other parent saying I would make different decisions, right? I'd live differently. And we were in a mediation with Family Court Services at one point, and my ex went on a whole rant, and the mediator just poo-pooed it at the end and said, okay, I understand. You guys don't get along. Now, onto the children, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if we got along and we agreed, we'd be together, right? There's no reason to say, I don't like the way things are done in your home. That's not your control anymore. And you want to ruin your life, try to get all emotional and try to control what's going on in the other person's home. You brought peace to this world. How do you co-parent with somebody who can't? How do you co-parent with somebody who doesn't have it doesn't matter if they can't or won't. It's just not happening. If you don't have a willing participant on the other side co-parenting, what do you do? What do our listeners do in their own homes when they have their kids?
Well, what you're really speaking to here, Charlie, is what I consider the myth of co-parenting. Whether we're in a committed relationship and we're parenting together and we're doing this stuff, there are places where we don't agree, and then we have to find, some ability to be in relationship with our expression of how we want to parent. And if we're healthy, if we're able to do that, co-parenting is something that really does exist. But when we move into the idea of high conflict, co-parenting is really a myth. It is that piece that judges and attorneys and uninformed therapists will look at and say, you guys are adults. You have to learn how to co-parent for the sake of the child. And this is something that does not happen in high conflict cycles, high conflict scenarios with parents, because this is the fulcrum. This is the place of dissidence between the two parents that they decide that they are going to argue. The child becomes the baseball bat by which to beat the other person up. And it's interesting because some of the co-parenting things that I hear that people are in disagreement for seems actually arbitrary, in that they just want to diminish the capacity of the other parent and their place in the child's life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if we take the co-parenting idea and throw it out the window, just say, this is not something that we're even going to entertain because it's not practical. We're not going to find agreement here because of whatever the reason is, whether it is a personality disorder, whether it is a place to just be an argument of, let's take it and let's say that this is not a practical approach. And what we're going to do here, the place that we're going to make the change, is to come into what has well become known as parallel parenting. And if we think about this from the beginning, it's a do no harm model. Parallel parenting says that we are just going to create space here. We're going to remove the argument. You want to be a permissive parent, you be a permissive parent. You want to be an autocratic parent, you be an autocratic parent. Neither one of those types of parenting is healthy, but I can't change it. I'm going to let you figure this out on your own. And what I'm going to do in my home is I'm going to create an authoritative parenting model that says we're going to talk, we're going to solve problems, we're going to be in relationship with the children and do this in a healthy manner. And I'm going to create this. And you can't stop me from my parenting style any more than I can stop you from your parenting style. So we're going to create space in this. Now, let's look at this from even a healthy standpoint. We've got two parents that are healthy, and they're splitting and they're angry at each other and they're not thinking clearly. And what is not going to happen is a back and forth conversation that says, you know what, honey, you're right. And I'm going to do what you want me to do here. And I'm going to make that change. That exchange is not usually going to happen because it's somebody telling somebody that they want them to do something that that person doesn't want to do. They're in the early stages of the breakup, and there's anger, there's resentment, there's something there that's pinging that. So what we're doing in this approach is we're giving both parents autonomy. And when they've got autonomy, when they've got the opportunity to think freely for themselves without an outside influence, oftentimes that lack of stress lets them think clearer. It lets them find their way. And the parallel parenting model in these arenas can actually help move toward a more collective co-parenting model down the road. It takes some time, but I believe, and I believe strongly, that the parallel parenting model coming out of the chute is a much more practical approach.
It made a lot more sense to me when you said it, and I'd never heard it. That's why on the previous show I said, hey, do you know what your favorite thing, my favorite thing you ever taught me is, right? Because the co-parenting, all of the information on co-parenting, that's for the 70% of the divorces that sail through the system because both sides are healthy. They're just upset a little bit, right? Or how would you possibly know without the help of an attorney or a judge, like how to split up your assets or what your support should be? And you don't have the software. You just need help. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But co-parenting is not for the person who, the 30% of the people where something, whatever it is making it where you cannot get along and there's all kinds of high stress and it's hurting the children. Something has to change there. Now, I remember from tons and tons and tons of relationship training. I'm a junkie for learning. I take classes and go to conferences and read books and listen to podcasts, and any way I can learn, I love it. I remember in the past, one of the issues inside of relationships in general, let's say it's marriage, is if the person starts to begin to act like your parent. So if I'm with a woman and she's treating me adult to adult, I like that. But if she starts treating me adult to child, like trying to tell me what to do or be my mom, not only do I not like it, but people don't like having sex with their mom, so it messes up like intimacy. Just all kinds of stuff goes wrong. Isn't telling the other person how to run their home or what they're doing right and wrong another one of those examples of being their mom or their dad? And your point's never going to get across anyway. They're not going to hear, even if you're right, they're not going to hear it from you, right?
Right. Right.
So it doesn't work. It just stresses you out and it doesn't work. What do you control? You control the environment inside of your home. And this is probably a good area for people, whether they're religious or non-religious. And I've been both. You know some of my history, right?
Right.
This is probably a good area for someone even to make up a God and just go, I don't have to answer to the other parent. I don't have to make them happy. This is between me and God, whatever that means to you. This is just my environment. I need to be a good mom or a good dad. This is about the kids and what I think is best for them. If the other person wants to spaz out and scream for the rest of their life about how you do it in your home, just disengage. Don't even, have somebody else read the text or the email, which we'll talk about. But you do what you think is right. And in many ways, it'd be run your household like you would if the other person was dead. If there was no one inputting, you just had to make choices, right?
Right. This and this is absolutely the direction that we want to go. And you brought up this concept of morality, of religious, of spirituality, or these concepts. And I think that the more a child is exposed to more different aspects of this is healthy for them. They get to grow and learn more diversity in their scope of what this means. And if you're not pounding that in your realm as being the only piece, and you're allowing the other parent to give them their input, it's creating a broader spectrum of perspective for your child to choose from, to decide where their perspectives lie as they move forward and into their adult lives. And it gives them an opportunity to be less judgmental in the world in terms of working with other people. And this gives them a different perspective to move away from conflict and move more toward inclusion and respect for other people as they grow, right?
I mean, divorced children are really lucky in some sense. I don't know if you've heard me say this or not, but I've felt like I was at a disadvantage having my father divorce my mom when I was 2, and she didn't remarry until the middle of 7th grade, till I was in 7th grade. And that's a whole different story. But I feel like, Brooke, I saw no examples of a household. Like, some people have a father who treats them in a way they don't like, and they're like, I will never do it that way. I'm going to be the opposite of my dad. And that's a type of a plan, right? Some people say, I had an amazing dad and I want to be just like him, or whatever combination in between. Here's the things I'd like to do, and here's the thing I'd like to do differently. In my experience, I had nothing. I didn't have anything to look at and hate. I didn't have anything to look at and imitate. So I've always felt like I'm making it up, right? I'm not following anybody. Divorced children or children of separated parents have an advantage of one sense because they're seeing 2 different examples, especially if both sides get back into another relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that can be part of the parallel parenting, whether the person likes your home, the rules in your home better, or the lifestyle in your ex's. It's just, you know what, hey buddy, this is so important that you see this, right? Because one day you need to run a household, and that's part of what this parenting thing is about. It's not about whether mom's right or dad's right. It's we're each going to do our best and make mistakes, but you get to see 2 different sets and then be yourself and be you in the world and pick the best of both of those. And that's good, right?
Yeah, I think so. And children are really smart. They're really resilient in this, and from a very early age, they're working in a world with different rules. We've got school systems now that change teachers in classrooms, and they've got 2 teachers at kindergarten, and some of these teachers have different rules in their world. And they go down the street and they are in somebody else's house, and there's different rules, and they start to move through and see that rules are not standard. that different people have these, and it starts to create different perspectives and gives them the ability to experience more perspectives in a healthy manner. And if we, as parents, choose to really, like I said earlier, find out what parenting is about, the children are going to navigate to the household that has more health. They're going to understand that this is a secure place, that I'm safe here, and that I'm heard, and that I'm honored, and that I'm nurtured. And if that doesn't occur in the other house, they're also learning how to navigate that from a healthy perspective, because they're watching you navigate that from a healthy perspective. When we're talking about not engaging in the conflict, where we're talking about not being reactive, where we're calm in those moments with our child where they're just being jerks, and we're helping them navigate their jerkdom, if
Yeah.
you will.
Jerkism.
That jerkism, that they can say, oh, I'm not bad, I can be reflected in this, and they can help me move through this. Then they're learning how to install that software in their system, so when they go to the other parent's house and it's not um, being mirrored in the same manner, that they can still have a sense of, I'm okay, and that I don't have to jump into that. I noticed when I was doing this with my grandson and my daughter, when he came to live with me, he saw that I didn't jump into the drama that was trying to be created by his mom. And that installed a different perspective from him. So when he went there, he started to go into more choice. It's like, I can get into this fight, or I can choose not to.
Yeah.
And he got to try in real time to see which worked better. And because he was 14 years old, he would get drawn into that because that was the pattern.
Yeah.
But when he chose not to, he also found that that had a really good advantage. If he just sat down and shut up and navigated that by disengaging from it, that was valuable to him. So part of what I was teaching, again, is the disengage, disengage, disengage as a social tool for him, not just with his mom, but with the world in general.
And I'm going to ask you to teach us something that you use with your grandson. But first, I think it's important that we got one of your dog's collar shakes on recording. That was really good. I love your dog, and we got a collar shake. She's right there, isn't she?
She is.
Perfect. She should be a part of this show. She's good at disengaging. She never talks back. Never talks back. Very obedient. I think people have all different skills. Either they've come naturally or they've worked on them and made them a part of their life. But I think one of the skills that you have is when things start to go awry, not obeying the mirror neurons and going, oh, it's time to escalate, I'll escalate, right? But when you see, let's say your grandson or someone you're talking with going a direction that may be unhealthy or unedifying, you seem to have language, and this is good for parallel parenting because the listeners need to decide how to run their own homes. Forget the other home, right? How to run their own homes. Give the listeners an example. I've heard you talk about it a lot, but if, say, back in the day, your grandson's living with you, it's much like you're parenting. You're his dad, but you're really his granddad, and he's not doing well. He's often upset or whatever. He's speaking in ways he shouldn't. You've had language that I've heard you talk about that's not like fight back and push back and say, oh, you disrespectful little brat. It's more, how are you feeling right now? Or what would it feel like to you if I spoke that way to you? And you'll do better than I am. But how do you do that? What can people do that's not scream back at the kid when they're freaking out?
Well, I think that those are two really good examples, Charlie. And it's just simply a place of being relational. hey, buddy, looks like you're having a hard time here. What's going on? You know, this doesn't feel particularly good to me. And I'm wondering if we can do this a little bit differently, because clearly that there's something here that is troubling you. And I want to talk to you about it.
See, that sounds calm. Like that sounds calm to me, but that's about as opposite of wimpy as you can get. That's a major, that's a like a strong, powerful person thing to say, right? Like the way you're talking to me doesn't feel good, and it feels like you would like to fight or you want me to respond, but like it doesn't feel good what's happening right now, and I love you. What's going on? Like, tell me what's happening. Have I done something to offend you, or did you have a hard day? But let's not go that route. Let's just have a conversation. What's
Right,
happening?
right.
That's powerful, right?
Well, it's present, and it's not conflictual. It's, yeah, something's going on here, and you don't like it, and this is pinging me in a way that's not feeling good to me, and this isn't how I want to do it. Can we do it a different way? You know, one of the other things that I did with my grandson, because he would go to his mom's, and they have a way of fighting, they have a way of arguing, they have a way of almost in a sibling way getting up in each other's grill and escalating. And that's not my style. And it's not how I have ever done it with him in my home. And one of the things that I would do with him when this would start to happen is I'd slow him way down and I'd look at him and I'd go, so, buddy, take a look around the house here. Just look around the room here for a minute. And that was getting him to orient. And then I would say, where are you? And he'd look at me and he'd say, I'm with you, Opa. I'm in your house. And I'd say, so is this how we do it here?
And that's
And,
let me cut you off for a minute. That's not that different than three rowdy kids in a library being loud, because we talked about different environments, different teachers. This is the way the
right,
world works, right? Three
right,
kids are being loud in a library, and the librarian could come up and scream at them and be disrespectful and kind of sort of crush every opportunity to earn their trust and speak in their lives and just be authoritarian. Or
right.
couldn't they come up and say, like, guys, you guys look like you're having so much fun and such an important part of life, but look around. Where are you? And if they said in a library, and they said, okay, is the library the place to scream and yell like a concert, or is the library a place for hushed tones because other people are studying? You don't. We're not slaves. We don't have to freak out. We're allowed to stay present, like you're saying, and stay calm, and just let language do its job without the tones and facial expressions and whatever comes out of you energy wise when you're freaking out. Right? Can't we just use language?
Well, language is powerful, and connected language is critical. And if we can connect the points of, you know, the orientation of where we are to the rules and the behavior that is confluent with that, then we're moving in the right directions. And one of the things that I find that happens in this parallel parenting world is the kids will act out in ways that the other parent used to act out. It's like, you're just like your dad, or you're just like your mom. You're acting just like them. And that is a put down, and it is a put down to the child. It's a put down to the other parent. It is not, it's not something that is going to resolve a problem. It's going to escalate the problem, and it brings in a shame
Mm-hmm.
uh, for everything that's here. And I know that this happens for parents because it's happened to me. So what this languaging is doing is it's really taking that all out of there. It may be exactly what you're feeling, but it's like, no, these are my rules. These are our rules. These are our agreements. And you are here. What you do there is what you do there. You work that out with the other parent, however you work that out. But here is here. And what I'll hear from, what I've heard from my grandson, what I'll hear parents say is, but at mom's house or dad's house, they let me do this, and or this is how we do it. And the simple comment is, well, we're not there, are we? We're here.
Right.
And these are our rules.
Right.
And how do these rules work for you? Because oftentimes, we've discussed them and we've come into agreement with them. I think that parenting in its best approach, and its authoritative approach, is through agreement. It's like, does this make sense to you? Does this work for you?
Mm-hmm.
Is this something that we can agree on to work from? And then that orientation to where are you becomes really a powerful statement.
I think it's really powerful. The where are you, right?
Yeah.
Do you have a story? You can change the person's name, but all your decades of working with people, do you have a story of somebody who wasn't good at parallel parenting, but learned it? What learned it, right? Like, I know you have stories of people that weren't good at it. Good Lord, me, right? But somebody that wasn't good at it and learned it, and it showed up in the children's lives, or they were. Last week we talked about, I said, it only takes one parent and you can have a major effect. And you said, let me go deeper. You are their only hope, right?
Right.
Do you have a success story of someone you've seen change from the co-parenting, I want to try to change the other person's household or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, to just, I'm going to run my home calmly and try to be the best I can, and it had an effect on the children's lives, or at least their life, their own peace.
Well, I'm gonna think of somebody that's really personal to me, and that's me.
There you go.
Rather than step out, as I was raising my children, I was very authoritarian. And I didn't understand, like so many parents that have children, what it's like to raise children. I came from a family that was very authoritarian, and in some places, not very connected. And that's what I learned. So when I had children, it's like, no, these are the rules. This is what you're going to do. And I had a tendency to get loud and to be my way or the highway, and there wasn't a lot of discussion, and there wasn't a place to have the children really express what was going on for them. And my now ex-wife was very much the same way, and she was a screamer, and um, our children paid a price for that. And it's part of the reason that my daughter is the way she is and how she does what she does. And taking responsibility for that is part of my path. So fast forward into this place where I've always been a part of my grandson's life, and there's been, interestingly enough, where I started to learn this stuff after my divorce with my daughter's mom, that I really started to understand parenting, and I got this toehold in all of this. And then here comes my grandson,
Mm-hmm.
and from a very early age, he was in my life, and he was in my life a lot. I spent substantial amount of time with him, and he's actually come to live with me on 3 separate occasions.
Mm.
And what I was able to do with him was to really take what I learned, this more authoritative, Dreikers-based parenting, and apply it. And that gave me and gave him this place of, oh, I can trust this. I can be heard here. I can be who I am. I can move through and build some resiliency in his nervous system that is helping him now. And then conversely, knowing, because I tried, I really tried in this stuff in the early years to get my daughter to understand that her parenting style was really not conducive to this young boy's development, and that she was creating something that did come to fruition for her, which was a child that really doesn't trust her, and that doesn't want to have a relationship with her, and is out over in in a different place relationally with his mom that doesn't match. And in the same token, I'm here doing what I'm doing with him, and he's building that trust, he's building that resilience, he's understanding that there's a different way to do this. And the parallel parenting model in that, for me, from one end of the you have to do this way into it's not working, so let's just take care of business here, was really a part of my journey in through and into what I teach parents.
Yeah. You had a do-over to apply some of what you wished you'd known earlier, and it's fine that you didn't know it. The reality is it wasn't time for you to have that information when you raised your daughter, but it was time for your grandson, right?
Right. And I'm going to take a moment to highlight what you just said, Charlie, because there's people listening to this podcast, and what we just said is a wake-up call for them. As soon as they hear these words, they have a responsibility to make a shift.
Right.
Because if they don't, the damage is done. And this is going to lead us into our next podcast, and I'm going to just kind of highlight that for a moment. But the idea that it's all on them, they're 100% responsible for what happens next, has nothing to do with the other parent, is a part of the parallel parenting model.
And to whom much is given, much is required. It's a privileged responsibility. You get this information,
right,
and it's heavy. You need to now change. However, that's a privilege. You didn't have to hear this before you died. You get this. It's a gift, right?
Right.
What? Let's do a practical application, and then we'll close the show. But let's say the listener is the person receiving all the information from the children and the ex, that everything you're doing in your home is wrong, right? You shouldn't be disciplining this way. You shouldn't whatever. You shouldn't have wine around. You shouldn't have another girlfriend or boyfriend. You shouldn't this. You shouldn't let them watch these type of movies. There's the other side is still trying to be your mom or dad. There's not parallel parenting coming at you, right?
Right.
Yet, and the kids are telling you, this is not how we do it at dad's, this is not how we do it at mom's, and I don't like this, and blah, I hate you, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you take everything we learned last week on disengage? How do you take the parallel parenting model? How do you take the calmness, right? The use of language, probably tone and facial expression and physical structure are even more important than the words, right? Give us an example. How does somebody live in that environment, that weather, right? Where the kids and the ex are both telling you, this isn't how it should be done. You should be different.
This sounds personal to you.
Never.
Charlie,
not at all. Never. Nothing. I have no problems in my life. Everything's perfect.
So the practical approach to this is the steps that I go through and all this, and whether it's my parenting or my life in general, is I go to the 3 rules. I'm not going to step into that conversation with anybody.
Not the kids or the ex. Like,
not the kids or the ex.
Disengage from both, because neither one of you guys are my parenting coach.
Right. And I'm going to simply step back, and I've probably delivered this conversation before, and by my non-engagement, I'm making a strong statement. This is a boundary. I'm not going to go here. And I'm going to sit down. Rule number 4, I'm going to just not do something, sit there. And just let it steam and settle and be in my system and look at it and go to, well, is there something out of what's being delivered here to me that I need to hear? Because maybe there is. There likely is. There's probably something in that has got some legitimacy that I need to look at. But I don't need to express that. I don't need to acknowledge that. This is an internal piece, because if I go outside and I enter that with the ex or the children. Now we're just walking into territory that's a disaster.
Right.
And from that standpoint, I can start to make changes or not, or do something or not based on what my set of parameters are for parenting. And I've said that what I've said to the kids by not engaging with them is this is not a conversation I'm going to have with you. This is coming from another place, and this is not your role. And it's not ignoring them. It's a boundary, because I've set with the children this place of, I'm not going to discuss with you the stuff between the other parent and myself. And you are not the carrier of information for either one of us. It's not where you get to be. I am going to expressively, intentionally take you from the middle of this, because this isn't good for you. I'm going to remove you from the middle. And that's part of what the parallel parenting model does. It takes the child out of the middle.
That's awesome.
Especially if we do it intentionally.
And they don't like it there. It's not healthy for them there. And that's what the lazy, unintentional, ignorant, in the best meaning of the term, without information, right?
Right.
That's what someone would naturally do. That's the natural golf swing, the natural dance move. They're going to put them in the middle because they're angry and it's easy or whatever. But on purpose, our listeners can take them, can receive them from the other parent, assuming they've been put back in the middle, and can purposefully take them out, can receive them, assuming they've been scolded and yelled at and raised voices and all kinds of this. We can purposefully take them out of the middle, purposefully empower them, be peaceful, use the words and language and conversation and tone of voice and where our bodies are, kneeling down for smaller kids or sitting down. We can treat them with respect, like other human beings that we're raising purposefully, and make you can create an example that's going to be with them for the rest of their lives and be very healthy, right?
Right. And what we're going to discuss in another podcast is how to transition the kids from house to house so they can easily make that movement into an orientation of, oh, I'm here now.
Perfect.
Okay.
But the baton handoff is a huge part of relay races, right?
Right.
Very good. Very good. Can we wrap it up, or anything else you want to say on this topic?
Let's wrap it up, and we'll get together next week with a whole new set of conversations.
Perfect. All right, listeners, hopefully this is helping you to listen to Brooke and I kind of rant and talk back and forth and dig deep into these conversations. Parallel parenting versus co-parenting. You don't have to have a cooperative partner. If you got a booger on the other side, or somebody that has mental or emotional situation where they just are unable to do it, you still can run your own household in a way that is healthy for the children. You can raise incredible, wonderful kids. And honestly, trials are not bad. The fact that they spend time in another environment that doesn't go the way you want is actually good for them. You need to teach them how the world actually works, because the job of parents is to prepare them to be in that world where things don't go perfectly. It's not a bubble where everything happens. We're not in heaven yet, folks. It's not there. So, Brooke Olson, Charlie Jewett signing out. We will see you next week. Until then, love on your kids, be the best you can be, and we'll be back soon for more help. Brooke, people don't have to wait until Friday mornings to get more content. If this is something that's helpful for them, right? This isn't the first time you've broadcast anything or recorded anything or put anything out there in the world. What are the other ways people can get the help more aggressively or speed up their recovery process? What materials are available for people right now?
Well, I've written a book called The Black Hole of High Conflict, and it's available on Amazon and Kindle.
Great.
And everything that we're talking about is really compressed and put into there. So this is a really good starter place to get in and get your mind working and to see what these concepts are about and how to start to apply them. The other place that I think that is valuable is to go to our website and look at some of the blog articles that I've written. Those are available there as well. They go into some of these other arenas, and that's at www.highconflict.net. So the book, the website are also really good places to get the material. And also, we have classes. We have high conflict diversion program classes that you can get into and get some one-on-one help with this as well.
And you know me, I'm aggressive. Whatever I want to become good at or learn, I find someone who's good at it and pay them and hire them and shorten my learning curve. What if somebody just wants your help? Somebody says, Brooke has this information. He's good at something I'm not good at yet, and I want to work with him. Do you have any type of coaching or consultations or anything like that?
Absolutely, I do. I do one-on-one coaching for custody cases. I help people get ready for family court services. If you've got that in your community, I work with attorneys and clients to help them with managing and strategically setting them up to have more successful cases as well.
And how do they reach out? You want them to just go to the website or email or phone, or what's the best way for them to reach out, raise their hand, and say, I need some help?
They can email me. My direct email is brooke@highconflict.net. That's BROOK at highconflict, HIGH, conflict.net.
Perfect. That's everything everybody would need to get some help, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Brooke.
Thank you, Charlie.